Hello, everybody. This is Mike Gormley. This is the Mike Gormley Show, and we are honored to have Susannah B with us today, talking about her music and I don't know, life in general, I guess. Hi, Susannah. How you doing?
Hi, Mike. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Um, so you're, I know you've been doing this for a while, but you're also kind of a new artist at the same time. Am I incorrect in saying that, or is that
No,
accurate?
you are correct. There's another way to say it, which you could say I'm a new artist who's older. I've been a new artist for a long time. How about that? Um, yes, I am a mom of two adult children.
Wow.
So you can do the math. I'm up there, and my kids have are in college, and my son just graduated. And all through being a mom, I was releasing albums on my own and being an indie artist. But at the time, 15 years ago or whatever, there weren't streaming platforms, and so really the only way I could get my CDs out there was to like bring them to the T-ball game and like pass them out during snack time or like the parents' night at the elementary school. I would do gigs in LA, but I didn't really have a way to get them out there. And now with the streaming platforms, everything's changed. And so
Mhm.
last year, I kind of gathered some of my songs together from previous albums and re-recorded them with an all-star amazing band and released that. And for the first time ever, I have a team and distribution and things like that. And so I am, yeah, kind of being a new artist in a way that I never have before.
Well, that's good. That's good. But I think if not the, it's certainly one of the most difficult jobs in the world is being a mom. Yet you've been a mom and some level of career. Is that right? I mean, that's tough
Yes.
balancing.
It is. It is tough. I mean, I grew up with a single mom who was working always, and she was a singer-songwriter as well. So I saw what it was like to have a freelance mom trying to make it, work and being creative and writing songs, while we were watching TV, me and my
Mhm.
brother. I really had a good example of that. And so I am not a single mom. I am married, and my husband has been able to really support me and help me as I do my creative thing. But yeah, I agree with you. Momming is an incredibly parenting, we shall say. Parenting is a really undervalued job, as we know, and there's just so much more to it. And I was just talking yesterday with my vocal coach about the fact that she's thinking about starting a family soon. And I was just saying that your time is so precious, it becomes so precious that actually it really focused me because when I knew that I had to drop off my kid at 8:30 and I had to pick him up at 2:30, like those were my hours, and I actually made two full-length albums when my kid was in elementary school just because I was going to the studio for like 3 hours and then I'd go to Trader Joe's and buy the groceries or whatever, but I was pretty disciplined with my time, and that helped.
It's uh, won't drop the name, but a very famous singer-songwriter. I got into a conversation with him a number of years ago, and we were talking about what your career does to your home life, to your personal life. In
Mm.
his case, he was in a band that was doing well and then just shot up like crazy. But he said you give up the first couple of years. When that starts happening, you leave your almost. He didn't say this, but it's almost like you leave your family behind because it's going to for 2 years or so to get to a point where you can now control it. Um, what
Wow.
if that happens? Because your guys,
Well,
you're
if that happens to me now, that's all good because my kids don't need me anyway, so that's fine. Um, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I even remember my mom, her name was Carol Hall, and she had a record deal in the 70s with Elektra Records. So she toured when I was a kid with Don McLean on his American Pie tour and Loggins and Messina. Like she was the opening act. And
Mhm.
I remember that I saw she had like Elektra Records put out like a songbook for her, and they had like different interviews that she'd done. And I remember being a kid and reading this paragraph that my mom had said about how kids affected her career. And she
Oh,
was saying like I can't really go schmooze at the party, where I'm supposed to meet the cool producers when I have my kids assembly the next morning at 8:15 and she's doing a dance, like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so my mom kind of admitted that having kids, affected her career to a certain extent, affected
Yeah.
how much she could get out there and self promote and all that stuff. And she didn't go on tour the way that guy that you're talking about did. Like she would,
Well, I
she'd
wasn't
tour
I
on the
wasn't a
weekends.
I wasn't a singer-songwriter, but I believed my um, belief at the time. I have grandkids now, but I was a home guy. I was a family guy.
Uh-huh.
I got to some pretty big heights in the music industry and some other things, but I always hung on to the family life more than anything. Not
Right.
not bragging. I'm just understanding what your mom went through, and I guess well you did go through. I mean, you may be putting more into it now than you have, but nevertheless, you've been writing and singing, and so you had to give up some of that for the family, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I think any mom who does any job of any kind that's besides the parenting is stretched thin. And I remember the moms I would meet, at all through the school years, the working moms who were had real jobs where they would go to an office as opposed to my job, which wasn't quite the same. They always felt bad that they were missing the bake sale or whatever. And those of us who were doing the bake sale were thinking, oh my gosh, I wish maybe I had some more time to do my own thing or do some work that means something besides, just
yeah,
being a mom. And I just feel like there's always kind of, it's a little bit like you can't win. I mean, I guess that's kind of the
a little
opposite.
bit, a
You
little
can
bit.
have it all, but
But
I
you
feel
do,
like,
but you can win. It may be a little later on. Besides, I'm assuming by the way you're talking that you got some really good kids, so you won there, right?
yes, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
not to be maudlin about it, but uh,
It was worth it. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so how did it actually? We're talking about time, but how did it actually affect your creative process, your writing, and that side of things? And I'm not asking could you get to it? How did you get to it, and what did it do to your songs?
The way that I have always gotten to my songs is by making appointments. It sounds silly, but like when I know that I have a collaborative session coming up, or I say I have my collaborator coming over today, even if I don't exactly know what we're going to do, if I
Mhm.
make the appointment and I do really well with collaboration and with having someone to be accountable to, I find that really, really helps me. Like, of course, when the muse strikes, I'm there with a pen and paper, but that doesn't always happen. And
Right.
so for me, the way I try to keep myself on track is by like setting things up and making these appointments like, okay, I'm going to reserve that recording studio. Okay, I'm going to reserve the band for that day. I guess I'm going to have to write a song or two because, everybody's showing up and I don't want to look like a bozo. And so I've done that a lot. That's really helped me. Because I find it really difficult to self-motivate when, especially again, being a parent, being the one, especially being at home, there's so many distractions, it's really
Yeah,
hard.
sure.
There's always dishes to do. There's always something. And
It's a
so
good song title. There's always dishes to do.
yeah.
Go ahead,
Um,
Karen.
so that's one way I've done it. And then also, to be honest, I mean, there were long stretches of time when I didn't write, and just having to trust that I'll get back to it, or I took some detours. Uh, and like there was a point where my neighbor across the street in Los Angeles, he is a professional tuba player and plays with the LA Philharmonic and teaches at a very prestigious music school. And so he asked me, he had heard me singing, had come to a show of mine at some point and asked me if I wanted to participate in this kind of jazz project. And so I kind of went off on that for a couple of years. And I wasn't writing then, but I was learning how to sing some incredibly difficult
Sure.
songs that I'd never sung before. So
Yeah, yeah, this is
um,
all part of the process. You're still learning, and
yeah,
you're still expressing your artistic side in some way.
right, right. So
And on top of which, evidently you helped some other people. You taught some other people along the way, I imagine.
Yes, yes. I have used music. I'm really passionate about music as a healing energy, as a healing force, and particularly singing as like something that uplifts us. And not just singing like, oh, I'm a vocal coach, because I'm not, but more, I'm good at getting groups of people to sing together. And
Hmm.
so I've done that kind of therapeutically, like singing for wellness in places like I worked for a couple of years at a like halfway house, sort of transition housing for men who were getting out of prison and returning to society. And so they were in situations where they had to take a certain amount of classes, they had to show up a certain amount of hours and do kind of therapeutic things. And so every Wednesday night for a couple of years, I led this a cappella singing class with, it ranged from uh oh my goodness, it ranged from, are you there?
I'm here,
I'm
still here.
sorry. I just
Can't
went,
get rid of me that easily.
I turned my phone to do not disturb, sorry. Anyway, it was a bunch of guys who were in prison getting out, and I was getting them to sing every single week. And so they really were uplifted by that. And they were extremely cynical, of course, uh,
Mhm.
about what I was trying to sell them. But ultimately, they went along with it. And they would come up to me afterwards and say, like, I didn't think that was really going to work, but I feel so much better than we started. And so
That's great.
that's
I have
something.
a friend who has a small class, some, let's say 6, 7 people, um, and whether they're singers or not, they're welcome in, and it's therapy.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of people. She always says, she says, everyone tells me I sounded great in the car, you
Right.
know, but when you get up in front of a mic in front of a few other people, it's not quite the same. But you're learning from it, and I speak from experience because she got me up in front singing to a few times,
Oh, yeah.
and I'd always been told I can't sing. I either proved them right or or overcame it. I think I overcame it to some degree anyway. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think way too many people have been told that they can't sing. I just think
yeah,
it's terrible. And I know from experience, singing myself and watching others, that singing is like one of the most vulnerable things you can do. It's
mm,
kind of the, spiritual equivalent of like having all your clothes off or something. There's something incredibly revealing when we sing, and it is so unprotected. You can't, it's really hard to fake it, to put
sure,
any kind of veneer on top of your own
yeah.
voice when you start letting it out. And that can be extremely powerful. But before it gets powerful, sometimes it can be terrifying. And that's why I also love the idea of people singing together, because I came from such a I grew up in New York City and with my mother in show business. There were tons of people at my house all the time. And after every dinner party that my mom had, everybody would go into the living room and sit down and play their songs. Now, I did not do that. I was quiet. All these
Mm,
other people, including my mom, were, professionals, and it was a big solo kind of a thing. There wasn't like group singing at all. It was just soloist after soloist. And in my life, as I've gotten older, I'm more a fan of the group singing, the making it a communal thing that's
oh yeah.
shared. There's a lot less pressure, and it just becomes a different thing. And I've also seen when people sing together, the sense of community, the sense of being a group strengthens and grows. That's why, in the civil rights movement, singing those songs together as they marched, those people really experienced that. And I wish we could still find a way. I wish we could find a way back to that, to using singing as a way to really strengthen our sense of
I
community.
think it's out there. I think it might be out there more than ever because of the structure of the music industry.
Hmm.
Um, you're on your own a lot more now than you used to try to get a deal and all that sort of stuff. But like you say, you had to put your own team together now. You have
Right.
to go out on your own. We're going to slide out to a commercial. We're going to listen to "The Enemy in Me" on the way out. Get a little short. "The Enemy in Me" is an intriguing title. What's that about?
Yeah, I had that title for a long, long time. It's about the really, really mean voice I have in my head that tells me that I should never do anything risky or creative.
Well, that's a fight.
And I've heard that I'm not the only one who has a voice
No,
like
no,
that.
no, no. There's before we go in there, a quick thing about Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. I heard him being interviewed once, and he says he's there's only a couple of singers he knows who like their voices.
Mm.
He said Rod Stewart was one of them who likes his voice. But- So that's interesting. But anyway, let's go. Let's listen to The Enemy in Me and slide out to a commercial, and
Okay.
we'll be back to the Mike Gormley Show and Susannah B in a minute or so.
Okay. Thanks.